Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kill Your Inner Loser. I'm Andy, and this is Cam.
Hello, Andy.
Let's answer some questions. We're going through my comment section and answering questions. So if anybody has questions, feel free to leave them. Matthias Gratz 5219 says, have you ever met Chris from Good Looking Loser? No.
No.
Next question. No, to be clear, we get this question a lot, man, where people are like, are you in touch with Chris from Good Looking Loser? I get this email quite a lot where someone's like, hey, can you please tell Chris to do this, and can you tell Chris that his forums aren't working? And it's like, I appreciate that, but no, I'm not in contact. So no, I'm not really in contact. I could message him and he would probably reply within a couple of weeks, but he's a very busy man. He's currently running.
He's very busy.
He's running his business, and he came back to YouTube for a little bit, but he's not going to, he's gone again. So he's busy.
To give guys an idea, he's involved in Intelligent, which is run with More Plates, More Dates. He's involved with his own Kratom business. And I think between those two things, he's got more than enough stuff going on. I know people who work for his company, or I know one guy who works for his company. So do you, our mutual friend who's a bodybuilder. And he says that they're just outrageously busy. So if Chris isn't doing anything, it's just because of that. No other reason, really. The website's still up, which is cool, given that we were worried about that going down. We do know Scotty now. Lots of guys know Scotty personally. Yep. Scotty was just hanging out with a few guys in New York. So I guess that counts as GLL. We do know someone from GLL who's got a little bit more contact with everybody now.
Next question from Dark Knight 526. So you recommend not doing the AA program or the approach anxiety program and just going out to the front lines and trying to approach over the course of minutes, to weeks? Yeah, generally speaking, that's what we do. There's a guy in the coaching program right now. I don't know if you've seen the post yet, Cam, because he only posted it yesterday, where he's basically saying, should I do the AA program or should I just go out and talk to women? And we haven't really recommended the approach anxiety program to a single person in the coaching program. I can't think of anyone over the last couple of years. We just tell people go outside and try and talk to some women.
So we've had a lot of good results with having guys go out and just try and brute force it. And the problem with the AA program is it kind of allows you it tells you not to approach for 8 weeks. And you could theoretically get an approach out and string a few approaches together. Much love to Chris and the program, but the program is incredible. And lots of guys have had great results off the program, yourself included.
I did. Yep.
And I did like half of it. I finally got to approach because we went out, and after like 45 minutes, you managed to get me to do one. I'd never done one before. So it's like one of those things where we've seen too many times guys power through it early enough that it's worth gambling on that being it's worth us gambling on a guy managing to brute force his way into it than it is have him take an 8-week program. It just doesn't make as much sense, especially when our coaching program is 12 weeks. So you just about have enough time to get through it, but then you won't have a lot of time approaching and us giving you help. Whereas if you can get that approach done in the first week, then you have 11 weeks of us being go approach. Okay, this is what you do when you get that number. This is what you do when you get on a date, that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think I can't think of a single exception. I don't think we've had anyone who can't eventually talk to women and hit on them properly if we just, push him in whatever way we need to push him to go outside and do it. And we've had some fucking hard cases. And maybe I don't like the phrase hard cases, but some guys that ran into some shit. One of the guys in particular, I'll see if you know who I mean. He starts with S, very, very, very overweight, and he went out for about 6 weeks and tried to do it. Eventually, he even paid someone else in the coaching program to sort of wingman with him and do some photos with him and all of that. And he eventually got it after 6 weeks of just going out and trying to hit on women. There's a guy who's just finished up his coaching now, who starts with D. And he tried for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then recently just did his very first approach, and it went amazing. She gave him a phone number. We've had people, I don't know if you know who I'm talking about here, but his name starts with A, and he flew all the way over to my country from America, and I took him out in person over a weekend. And oh my God, he was literally the most challenging. His approach anxiety was the most challenging that I've ever worked with. He literally couldn't ask women for the time. I was like, okay, just try going up and saying, do you have the time? He couldn't do that. We tried for 2 hours and he couldn't do it. And then I was obviously demonstrating and saying, look, just watch. You just say, hello, can I please have the time? And she goes, sure, it's 3 p.m. And he just couldn't do that. And I stayed out with him for about 12 hours the first day. And I was just gently pushing him the entire time and trying to be very patient and, just embracing him with as much like, you're doing good, like giving him as much warmth and encouragement and love as I possibly could. And then on the second day, finally, he was like, okay, he asked for a woman. He asked a woman for the time.
He asked for a woman. He just went up to you, like, give me a woman, Andy.
He asked the universe. He's like, hey, can I please have a woman? And a woman was provided to him. Then from there, he was able to tell a few women, hey, you're cute. Then he was able to hit on them properly. Then he was able to ask for phone numbers. And that was literally just, we stayed out in the front lines. It took him about 20 hours of just us. No, it didn't take that long. It was about 16 hours of us just literally out there, me pushing him nonstop. And so he was probably the most challenging, or his AA was the most challenging that I've ever seen in my entire life, no exceptions. But I've taken you out, and you took 2.5 hours of me pushing you. Sometimes physically, my hands on you, pushing you towards a woman. I took out one of my good friends, a guy called Tim, and we went around for 2.5 hours, and I was physically pushing him too, in a nice, gentle way. I'm not shoving someone, but literally, come on, man, you got this. And it took about 2.5 hours, and then he was able to do 5. So I've never seen a single person who can't eventually talk to a woman. It's just that you want to sort of take the pressure off yourself to be good at it. You'll probably suck. If you are really terrified, I was too. I walked around for about a week, and this is before I did the approach anxiety program. I walked around for about a week trying to do it. Because I was like, I'm going to give everything I have to this. And I walked around for 6 hours a day for an entire week trying to do it. And I must have walked past thousands of women, because I lived in a city with 5.5 million people. I walked past so many women. Finally, I see this girl sitting in a park. She's just sitting on this little picnic rug. She looks so adorable. She's studying and, clearly a university student. And I looked at her so many times. And then I went and stood on this kind of, where there's almost this balcony at this park, and you can see off into the valley, and the sun was shining, and I'm just looking out, and there's birds flying, and it's really beautiful, and I'm just looking out there, and I'm going, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And I had this existential crisis, and I just stood there for I swear to God, 30 minutes just looking across this valley. And then I'd look back at her, and then I'd be like, come on, man, I can do this. And I was just giving myself this pep talk.
You were making it worse though as well. You were making it worse.
Yeah. But then finally I fucking did it. I walked over to her and I was like, hey. And
you created the hardest situation, because you sat there for 30 minutes, allowed it to build up, and you stared at her.
Yeah, it built up, motherfucker. Anyway. I thought I was at war with the entire universe or something, but I still did it. But then what I did is I thought, okay, I need to have the approach anxiety to make this easier. And so then I went and did the approach anxiety program, and that's my suspicion. My life,
that's my
suspicion.
I
will always be grateful for it.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's my suspicion, is that the AA program is suitable for people who they do one approach, but it was such a ridiculous effort, and they didn't feel great afterwards, and they're unlikely to be able to get another one after it. Whereas the guys who go out, they force themselves to get the first one, but then they string 2 more together after it. You see this with guys who can string it along. Whereas guys who do their first 15 or so and are still absolutely crippled by AA, they may actually benefit from a longer program, maybe.
Even then, I would have loved, and I don't have any regrets. Again, I really love the AA program. I'm so glad that I did it. But I would have loved somebody us, or our coaching program, or even these videos. I would have loved somebody to have given me a big fucking virtual hug, and a whole bunch of people we have in the coaching program go, oh my God, I can't believe you did one. That's so amazing, dude. You are such a legend. And go out there and try again. Go out there tomorrow. And I would have absolutely nailed it. And I would have, again, I fucking love the AA program. I'm so glad I did it, but I would have saved myself 3 months of 2.5 months that it took me to do the AA program. And then a 5-month gap after that, where I didn't approach anyone, because the AA program didn't actually get me to hit on women.
Mm-hmm. That's the other problem.
So I finished the AA program for 2.5 months, poured my heart and soul into it. I was putting 10 or so hours. And again, that was a life-changing time for me. I literally have a tattoo on my arm that is representative, reminds me, a nice little memento of my time in the AA program. That's how much it means to me. I am literally tattooed with a tattoo with the good-looking loser logo on it, on my body permanently. That's how much the AA program meant to me. And yet I am still saying, I would recommend you don't do the AA program and just go and talk to girls, because that's what I would have enjoyed too. Again, the AA program was a beautiful time, but I now would have preferred if someone had just said, go talk to girls. You did one, that's amazing. Keep going. Keep going. You got this.
There is a recurring theme that it's easier if you have other guys there who can approach with you. So like we do encourage people to go and meet up with other guys who approach. We had a guy, not obviously it's easier when it's American clients because they can typically get to a state where other clients are. So we actually have clients linking up in different cities, but we have had guys like a client we had from Belgium, if you remember who I'm talking about, and he found a group of, I guess, pickup artists. It was the group. And then he had other people some people in that group could approach, and therefore going out with them showed him gave him that experience that like in-person coaching would get you, just having like actual people to go out with. But yeah, the second best thing is going to be like virtual friends who are like, have got your back and giving you like, feedback and encouragement and celebration.
Yeah. You can even just get your normal friends. Like if you have friends that don't even talk to women and have no interest in that, you can even get female friends. We've had a few clients do this where they just tell some of their friends, one guy who just finished the coaching who starts with C, the guy with lots of muscle, where he would just tell random strangers in bars, hey, I'm trying to talk to women. I want to get laid. I want to meet women. I want to date. And random people, including random women, would wingman for him. And they'd be like, okay, go talk to that woman. You can do this. You got this. So you'll be surprised that lots of people want to encourage you with this if you just give them the opportunity. And so even some of your most normal friends who have no interest in this, tell them, say, hey, I'm trying to talk to the opposite sex. Do you think you would come out with me? You don't have to do anything. Just we hang out. And if you see a girl that you think is pretty, you say, hey, go talk to her. And just that little push, having someone there, knowing someone is with you, makes this 10 billion times easier. On top of that, obviously, there's the coaching program if you want something like that. Like, this is literally set up for us to all push you. But yeah, this isn't something that I would necessarily recommend you do on your own. Make it easy on yourself. You're playing on nightmare mode if you try and approach completely by yourself without telling anyone and without having anyone to push you and encourage you.
100%.
Kelly K combination says, Andy, loving the video. Quick aside, did the exercise about writing 50 things that I like about myself. I did the exercise about writing 50 things I like about myself. It was much harder than I would have thought, but I was able to finish it. So this exercise we get people to do, and I recommend everyone listening try this if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. But write down a list of 50 things about yourself that are likable. This is building self-esteem, obviously. This is building self-love. And it helps with those moments where, someone doesn't want to sleep with you or they don't want to date you. And you have those feelings of, shit, am I not good enough? If you have this list of 50 things about yourself that are likable, it's a really nice reminder of like, no, look, I'm doing okay. I'm pretty good. Like if this person doesn't like me, hey, that's beautiful. I hope they go find the person that they do like. But I have enough inherent qualities that someone would want to spend time with me. It's just up to me to go and find that person.
Yeah. 50 is a challenging number, which is why it's 50. That's the point. This is going to actually like make you sit down and think, because you'll get to like, even if you love yourself, you'll get to like 15 easy. And then it's like, oh, now we have to start.
How do I do 35 more? Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have to start digging into stuff and like, challenging my what's the word I'm looking for? And you challenge there's not enough likable stuff about me, like that kind of insecurity. You have to really start digging into stuff that you maybe think is a bit shallow. Like, oh, I think my eyes are really like good to look at, or I think I have a really nice jawline or something like that. You have to start digging into those ones, and you may think they're shallow, but it doesn't matter. I don't think your brain cares if it's like something that's like physical or it's something that's like about your personality. Even if you in your mind are like, oh, obviously I should value my personality traits higher. But I really don't think it matters when you receive compliments from other people. It won't matter either way which ones you receive. So do that for yourself. Think back to like really dig deep into like, I guess, what other people have told you and things that you struggled to believe. There are things that come up when I do this where I'm like, people have told me this and I never really accepted it in myself. Like creativity was one of those. Like I never gave myself credit for being creative ever. And like, until recently, and like you probably think that's kind of absurd based on just the sheer amount of shit that I've like output.
For most of my life, I didn't think I was creative until like after I finished my 365 project with photography. Then I was like, oh, I'm creative. I just did 365 incredibly unique photos and I didn't miss a day. I guess that is creative. It's like, yeah, you fuck. Of course that's creative.
I mean, I literally jumped into work as fashion consulting, which is literally an art. There's no science in it. It's an art. Like there's a thing about in the community where like we try and make everything science, but like there are things that just aren't science, and photography is one of them, and fashion's one of them. Things you have to kind of get good at.
Tinder photos feels like an art rather than a science.
Yeah, building your vibe, that kind of stuff is all an art. You can't really scientifically do it. It's like one of those things you have to kind of come to eventually through iteration and just like trying new things and seeing how it goes. But yeah, no, I gave myself credit recently for that. I know that's a 1 in 50. I've given myself credit for 1 in 50. There you go. Now I have 49 more. So yeah, I feel I don't. What's this Kelly? Is it Kelly?
Kelly K combination.
Yeah, like it's meant to be hard. That's the point. But it is actually meant to be hard. Like it's meant to challenge you to come up with things that are likable about yourself. We don't give out challenges that are like easy in this way because we want you to delve deeper into it.
If we said 5 things, I specifically chose the 50 number after playing around with different numbers on different clients and stuff. If we say write down 10 things about yourself that are likable, you could do that in a heartbeat and it won't mean anything to you. You'll forget it. You'll go, oh, that's nice. Yeah, I felt good for half a second. Thank you. But if it's 50 things, that might take you a few days or weeks or months, or that might even take you a few years. I don't think it'll take a few years, but like you can take your time with this. You can slowly add to it over time. And that is actually focusing on and building that self-esteem, which is kind of why we're doing this. And a second thing to say is 2 things to say here. If you struggle to write 50, you already said this, Cam, but you can ask other people. You can say to other people, hey, do you have like 1 or 2 things about me that are likable? And not what you like about me, because that's subjective. Like what's objectively likable about me? Like try and pretend you almost like you're talking about me from third person, what's likable. And then another thing you can kind of think is, if I genuinely can't think of 50 things about myself that are likable, can I go out and make some reasons? Like, can I throw myself into self-improvement and actually come up with some things, like become the person who has 50 things that are likable? So if you right now are down in the dumps and you're depressed and you're listening to this going, there literally isn't 50 things about me that are likable, okay, go and make some. Like take a pottery class and do that for a while. So, hey, I'm pretty good at pottery. Take a singing class. Hey, I can sing pretty well. Go and do some charity in your community. Hey, I'm nice to other people and I care about the community. Like literally do the things that would make you more likable, that would help you like yourself. So this exercise isn't about lying to yourself, right? Like don't invent 50 reasons. Don't just make some shit up if you genuinely don't believe that it's true or that it could be true. Go and find some things that you actually have to be proud of. And that's building self-esteem.
You will have, everyone who's doing it has one banker as well, which is I'm trying to improve myself. That's a likable quality. And if you're doing this, that's on there.
I care about myself enough to even try this 50 things that I like about myself exercise. Cool. That's a second one. I'm here watching self-improvement content. I obviously want to make myself, a better version of myself. That's another one. So yeah, tons of these. Olfan92 said, never chase women, let them come to you. And anytime I get a comment like this where someone uses the word never or you must always, where they're basically saying like a superstition or a rule that like everyone must follow, and they use language similar to that, like never, my instant reaction is always like, well, hey, I'm glad you found what you want, what works for you. Awesome. But the opposite also works too. And so I think we're going to have a nuanced discussion here of like, do whatever the fuck you want. If you want to build yourself into a person that women chase and they come to you, great. However, how many fucking times have we seen the person who's like, all right, I'm going to build myself into an elite alpha male Chad, and all these women are just going to come running over to me, and then they become an absolute god in the gym, and they spend 5 years building the world's most amazing, sexy, elite body, and they just literally look like an absolute Chad of a human being. And then they're like, all right, now it's time for these women to start coming to me. And then because of the general sexual dynamics, women don't come to them. Women aren't, generally speaking, going to walk over to you and be like, hi, would you like to go on a date with me? And I'm going to make all the moves as the woman, and I'm going to ask you out, and I'm going to kiss you, and I'm going to have sex with you, and then I'm going to organize all this shit. And like that just generally speaking isn't how it happens. Some women will, but I see a lot of guys that are almost like, I don't know if this is a harsh way of saying it. And again, do whatever you want to do, but I would question and say, am I avoiding the work? Like, am I avoiding the effort of talking to women because I'm hoping if I just improve myself enough that I won't have to do that effort or put in that work? So at the end of the day, do whatever you want, but I don't know that there's some magical land you get to where women hit on you and do all of the work. You're usually still the one pulling the trigger at the end of the day.
So this is the equivalent of saying in business, I'm not going to do sales and outreach. Basically, like, just there are ways of achieving a business that doesn't do sales and outreach, but you're just going to leave money on the table. Like, you're missing out on opportunities if you don't have the ability to go and
Can I interrupt for a second there? Because I think we got to define sales and outreach. Like, I don't do hardcore sales, but yet I mention coaching, don't I? That's essentially like marketing.
Yeah.
So it would be like if I never, here's what it would be like. It would be like if I never mentioned coaching. And even if I have the most life-changing content, and even if I change hundreds or thousands of lives, it would be like people don't even know that that's an option. They don't even know that that's a thing. And now you can get to a point. I have an example of my coach. His father has built a business that wasn't even intended to be a business, where he just helped so many people that people started saying, like, you've literally changed my life. Please let me donate money to you. And literally hand him money. But
this is the equivalent of building a brand and having a tip jar. That's what it is to me. And that you can make a lot of money. There are people who made a lot of money. They just have a crypto tip jar and that's all they do. But the amount of it's leaving a lot of tried and proven methods, like as if you're just throwing away what the majority of people do that's tried and proven. You're throwing away. That's what I'm trying to point out. Is that like
I'd
you're going for
like
one.
This.
Yeah, but okay. Let me finish my overall just quickly because I feel like you're pushing back like hard on this. But the idea is, like you said at the beginning, it's like they are choosing one way and thinking it's calling that the only way. Whereas I'm saying there are so many proven methods of making a dating life great. In the same way in business, there's so many proven ways, and what the majority are doing. That's what I mean. The majority of businesses are doing sales and outreach, whereas very few businesses are doing entirely off brand reputation and having people come to them and desperately try and get business off them. And it's like you are looking at the dating market and saying, this is the one method I want to use, and this is the only way of doing it, when it's like what a fraction of guys can actually do and make it successful. And the majority of guys are doing the way that you say that you should never do, which I think is a bit of a, I'm not saying, I don't want to come down on anyone, but it's kind of like, it's not an accurate look at the reality of how most guys who succeed in dating like operate. It just isn't. Like the majority of guys we know who build great dating lives, they do cold approach. They do a lot of outreach on online dating. They do a lot of stuff. They don't build up a giant Instagram and become like a godlike figure and get laid a ton. It just isn't the way it works for a lot of guys.
It takes a lot of effort, to be clear. Like,
yeah,
I'm
there's also like no reward in the build-up phase of that. You know what I mean? And you have like no control.
Because there's like I think here's what I'd say. Like, what this guy has said, Olfan92, yes, like you can get to a point where you build yourself up so much that some women hit on you. And if you get to an elite level, sure. Like if you make yourself into a rock star, sure, you don't really have to do anything. Like if you're literally, One Direction or someone like that, what an outdated reference. If you're some fucking big elite band, you literally don't need to. You don't need to do much effort. If you're Imagine Dragons, look at that, I'm hip with the kids. You're just getting laid left, right, and center. And so, yes, that can work. You can become Mother Teresa. And if you're not familiar with Mother Teresa, she dedicated her life to just helping people without any expectation of anything in return. And she built up such a cult following that people literally just threw money at her. And when she died, I can't remember the exact number, but she had a bank account that she never accessed that had something crazy like $70 million in it because people would just fucking, this bitch needs money. She's changed the world. Like she needs money. She didn't really care about money. But that, as you're saying, understand that that's such a niche thing. That's like 0.00001%. And you can do that. But in Mother Teresa's case, and I've read all of her books, particularly her letters and her unofficial autobiography, which is really fascinating, she took about 20 years of helping people before she got to a point where it started to become even slightly easy. Me, myself, who's someone who's done a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales, I took 1,500 pieces of content that I've made to get to this point today as we record this. It's taken about 4 years. There, as you know, and as plenty of other people in the coaching program know, there have been a lot of sleepless nights where it's like, I don't have any money to pay the fucking bills right now. And so, yes, it can be a strategy that works, of course. But understand, if you sit there and say, I'm just going to build myself into an elite human being, and then women are going to come to me, that might take you 5 years. You might be able to do it in less time. Like, we're not telling you how long it'll take, but it might take 5 years. And in that time,
Andy,
as you're saying, you might not meet any women.
Andy, let's frame this like this then, okay? Because I think like you're being very fair here. And I think if this is what my framing would be, if this was a coaching client and they came in and they said, for 12 weeks, in the next 12 weeks, I want to get laid as much as possible, but I don't want to do any approach or use online dating. Would you probably tell them in a comment that that is unrealistic if you are chasing a lot of sex quickly?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
And I think that's where we step back and say, this guy, Olfan 92, you have a very like rigid idea of what you want, and that's beautiful. Go for that. But to stick the word never at the start of it, which is you essentially, and this comment is you prescribing, you're prescribing and telling other people what to do. I just don't think this is a necessarily like great idea. I would never tell, it's funny, I'm using the word never. I wouldn't really tell anyone else, as you're saying, Cam, I wouldn't tell someone else like, don't chase women, like let them come to you. In the same way that I wouldn't say to someone if they said, hey, listen, one of my goals is to make money. I wouldn't be like, all right, so for the next 20 years, you need to just go out and change the world and give so much value and just pour your heart and soul into this and have so many sleepless nights where you just give value for free with no expectation and then just trust that the universe will provide 20 years from now. Like, still give value, still obviously build yourself up and improve yourself if you want women, but just add a little sprinkling of I'm going to ask for what I want, which is essentially what I've done. It's like, all right, I'm going to focus on building content. I'm going to change lives. I'm going to do all of this stuff and help people as much as I can. And then I'm going to say, and by the way, I offer coaching. So if you'd like to be part of the coaching program, there's a link in the description below. That's all you really need. Just like a little sprinkling. So build yourself up, have women interested in you for sure. And then just say, hey, you're really cute. What's up? My name's Andy. You're really pretty. What are you doing today? You just sprinkle that little extra step of asking for what you want. And to be clear, Mother Teresa asked for what she wanted. They would go around, it was part of the sisterhoods that she built. They would go door knocking every morning, asking for food to feed the homeless and the children and all of that. They would ask. Buddhist monks, as part of, being in their monkhood, will go around door knocking every morning. That's part of their philosophy, is like the universe will provide, but I need to ask. So to be clear, even the people who literally just let money and food come to them still ask for it.
This is the most Andy thing ever. We get a question. Well, not a question. We have a comment about getting laid. They're like, so Mother Teresa,
in her quest to get laid. So yeah, we can sum this whole. We can sum this whole up. And you and I do try, especially me. We try and be very fair. And to be clear, this isn't a bad comment. This isn't a criticism of you.
The problem is the word never. The problem is always being absolutist. If anyone comes in being absolute in the comments, I usually, it's unfair sometimes, but like, I don't know. It's really hard when you're being absolutist for me to see someone being absolutist about something that is actually very niche. Like the idea that like, because a lot of the guys who are lauded, I guess, as being the epitome of like a man who gets laid, like Dan Bilzerian and people like that, do fit the criteria of someone who just lets girls come to them. But like the idea that like the majority of men are capable of actually building that in any like in any like reasonable amount of time, and also it would still be good for you to go out and find and develop the skills of like finding sex when you're down and out, and like when you don't have a lot of means, and when you don't have a lot of don't have a giant Instagram following. It's still the skills that he's kind of damning the idea of chasing women with the way he's phrasing this. And there's
Yeah,
so
as if
much
it's a bad
worthwhile.
thing.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so much worthwhile skill that a guy can build up, like the ability to deal with rejection and the ability to like actually be chill in some very high pressure situations where not actual high pressure, but when like, you know, you got a girl back for the first time, you're like, oh fuck, what do I do? The ability to actually be chill in those situations that you learn by going out and actually chasing what you want. And also like just damning the idea of going out and actually getting what you want and instead just sitting back and let it passively come to you is I have a little bit of problem with like any, like, I guess people judging
like
and
the
shaming
moral
people for
high
that.
ground.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of shaming people for that personally. And that's just, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I do think it does that in that comment.
It does feel like it comes from that energy of like, it's a phrasing of chasing women being a bad thing. Like, never do that. This is so bad. And guys, everybody listening, we do our best, Cam and I, in our coaching program, to come from a place of like love and joy and excitement and what you want, rather than fear and phrasings like this. You know, we've been doing this for long enough to know that phrasings like this are coming from a place of fear, whether you realize it or not. And not to psychoanalyze you, old fan 92, but it's coming from a place of fear of like, something bad will happen if I chase women. And so I'm going to avoid that at all costs. And that just isn't a positive energy that gets you the thing that you want. It doesn't feel nice to live a life based in fear and to have your actions come from a place of fear, because you're like a scared animal. You're just reacting to everything. And so we can kind of finish this up before we move on to the next question and say, nothing bad happens if you go after what you want. If you hit on a bunch of women and say, hi, I like you, do you like me? Nothing bad happens if you get, quote, rejected. There isn't even a rejection. And maybe to extend an olive branch to old fan 92 here, I kind of agree somewhat with the idea of like never chasing women. I'm being extremely generous here, but it's almost, we can read it as maybe he's saying, don't sit there and like chase women and like, I gotta just do everything to get a woman. Like, please, mistress, please give me your phone number, please.
Simping. Yeah, that's
I
more.
actually
Yeah,
agree
that's,
with that sentiment. That's great.
Yeah, we don't.
I
agree.
Don't
that.
chase women. But at
you
no
never
point
advise
did we
that on
say
your
chase women.
channel. Yeah, you never advise that on your channel. None of us have ever advised that behavior.
Yeah, we go around, we talk to a bunch of people, and this applies if you're a woman, by the way, trying to date men. We just talk to a few people and we say, hey, I like you. Do you like me? Hi, I'm interested in you. Are you interested in me? If it's a no, hey, that's beautiful. I'm going to go and talk to the next person. And we just do that. There's no chasing. I would never in a billion years, neither of us would encourage you to chase. And I think it's that dichotomy that people get stuck into, maybe when they're in the, I'm going to sound rude here, but when they're in the early stages, comments like these scream to me, because I've seen tens of thousands of these over the years. Comments like these scream person who's just started with self-improvement and just started with sex and dating, or maybe hasn't even really done much at all, has read a whole bunch or watched a whole bunch of videos, has gotten something into their head because they watched, you know, a certain content creator or something. And then they go, okay, I'm going to go and just tell everyone on the internet that this thing. And it's like, when you've done this for long enough, you don't think in terms of absolutes, because you've been humbled enough to see, as Cam and I said, lots of different things work. And so you don't use language like, never do this. This is bad. We got to be scared of this thing. Something bad will happen. You realize that the universe is abundant. Women are really fucking nice. All of this stuff is a fun little game that you get to play. And nothing bad happens if you get rejected. Nothing bad happens if you chase women. All that will happen is you'll chase a woman. It'll be clear that she's not interested in you. You'll try that for like 6 weeks or 6 months. You'll eventually figure out, oh shit, this isn't a very good strategy. Or maybe you'll do that a few times with a few different women. You'll go, oh shit, chasing women doesn't really feel good. Cool. I learned something. Now I'll try something else. And you don't have this strong, I call it almost like a young man energy, where you're just like so absolutist because you're so scared of something bad happening. And you're going, never chase women. Something bad will happen. You kind of let go of that once you've had a fair bit of sexual experience. Once you've been rejected a whole bunch of times and you see that nothing bad happens, you don't really need to talk in absolutes anymore, because you're kind of just like, do whatever you want. You don't sort of feel the need to comment and tell someone not to do something in case something bad will happen. So you can kind of zoom out a little bit. And this is easier because we're coaches. And so we've seen this play out. You have to understand, we've essentially seen 1,000 other people's sex lives and dating lives blossom in front of us. We have a very good understanding of what can work, what doesn't work, and generally speaking, pretty much everything fucking works.
Yeah, I try to explain that to people. It's like, it's not our experiences we're going off. It's us plus the
It's like
1,000 odd
thousands
guys
of
who
people.
code. Yeah. It's like, that's what it is. Like, it's not just us. I'm good. I'm happy that we've answered this as well as we can. It's not even a question. It's just reacting to a comment.
Yeah, and to be clear, Olfan92, like I hope none of this comes off as us saying you're wrong or anything. I went through the same shit. You used to say this to me, remember, Cam? You said like I used to get into these big fucking internet arguments with people where I would write these like long fucking 20.
You're a keyboard warrior,
posts.
yeah. You're a covered keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would be like
that was clear
the same
from GLL.
young man energy. Yeah, I was the same young man energy. I was like, never do this. This is beta male shit. This is so bad. And then I look back and I've read over some of what I wrote and I was like, that's like what I was arguing is like objectively not even true. Like now that I'm further along and I've had more sexual experience and I've opened up and I've seen that the universe is a little more kind than I thought it was, and nothing bad happens if you chase women. You'll just learn a lesson. Or maybe you chase some women and it actually works. Let's, step back a bit and realize that like chasing women does work too. Like it literally works. I get into this discussion and I have a big giggle about this when someone's like, never simp. Simping is bad. It's like, you do understand simping is the most effective male strategy for meeting a woman since the dawn of time. Providing resources to a woman and being persistent is the most effective strategy. It just isn't very good for finding a woman that will actually like you. It isn't very good for having a lot of sex. It isn't very good for, sampling all the different types of women.
Oh, do you mean like paying a woman to be with you? Basically, you're essentially saying paying
like
a woman
simping,
to be with you.
buying her dinner, buying her flowers, and all
no,
that.
that's
That
not.
is
But you're talking about like more like the sugar daddy relationship, the way you were describing it.
not even
is what
that.
I was
just
thinking.
mean the normal male thing that most men do, where it's like, I'll buy you flowers, I'll buy you dinner, like, I'm going to look after you, sweetheart. Like
simping. I've always thought simping as being like, I don't know, maybe I've got a different definition of it. Maybe I've got a different definition of it. I always viewed simping as like more like unrequited, pathetic behavior around a woman, but maybe that's like a little bit different.
My aunt and uncle met like that. My dad met my mother like that. It's one of the most effective strategies. It won't work 100% of the time. It won't work a lot of the time. But you got time. You can simp for quite a few women, and eventually one of them will go, I really like your persistence. I really like that you buy me flowers and make me feel pretty and tell me that I'm a beautiful princess.
Okay.
I like
that. It works like 1 in 10. I don't think it works.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that.
So you only need to try with 10 women and it will work. It's a strategy. It's just not the one that we recommend because it leaves you feeling needy. It puts a lot of pressure on the woman. It puts a lot of a big burden on the other person going, I need you, please, princess, please. I've invested all this time.
Like love bombing.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a kindness to yourself.
That's not how you build an ethically non-monogamous lifestyle. Let's put it that way. That would not be how you do non-monogamy. Like the way we like to live.
It works.
Yeah, it just isn't. That's not going to work for non-monogamy.
Yeah, and maybe you can say we're nitpicking here, and we are to some extent. I think we both just have a reaction when we see the word never, or you should, or you must, or you have to, or like you said, a judgment on what someone else is doing. And
there are no rules. That's what annoys me when I see these things. Like my response is there are no rules. Like there just aren't. There's what we consider best practice. That's what's worked for us.
Yeah. And we've seen enough people that have done stuff like this. I have a lot of examples in my own life of, like I said, family members that did this. The best example is my uncle who chased my auntie for about 10 years. And then finally she's like, you know what? You've been persistent for 10 years, sure. And they're together and they've been happily married and they're actually quite happy together. They're actually really sweet. Yeah, it's not a big fucking hardcore sex relationship or anything like a lot of us are going for, but yeah, it's a great relationship. All right, my producer is telling me that we've been on this topic for ages, so let's move to the next one. So this comes from Commando Master, who says, the problem is that girls will reject you if they sense you're not confident, too awkward, weird, or don't stimulate them enough emotionally. Any little mistake that you make interacting with girls will cause them to not want anything further with you. It makes it very difficult for inexperienced guys that aren't competent or sure of themselves to get any success with girls. And I'd like us to be kind to this guy.
Can I go first?
As long as we're kind with this guy, because
no. I know when I said, "Oh my god," it sounded like I was going to go into being mean to him, and I'm not. Okay, so I did I did a content bit a little while ago about micro mistakes, and it was specifically aimed at both dating and social. And I spoke about this, I think, on one of the calls in the group, where I was like, it's very, very common, especially with neurotic inexperienced guys, and a lot of inexperienced guys are quite neurotic. It seems to be high neuroticism seems to be quite common among sexually inexperienced men. And the micro mistakes and beating yourself up about them, and also assuming that any bad thing that happened to you is because of a micro mistake that you made, which it fucking isn't, because you cannot tell. 100%. You are not, okay, I mean, so to say this to camera, like, you're not enough of a genius to be able to map out why everything in your life happened the way it did, but your ego tells you that you know everything when you don't. It's very difficult to overcome this idea that you know the mistakes you're making. Am I on full screen? That's weird. Andy, help me. Andy, are you here?
Oh my fucking God, dude. That fucked up so bad. Oh my fucking God.
You cut me off in the middle of a rant. Damn it.
It fucked up. It fucked up. Do you want to start that rant again?
What did I say?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong button.
I was doing really well.
Full screen. I know. I was trying to make you full screen.
Don't make me full screen because my background's not good. It's like, it's only good for like half screen.
Go.
I'll try and do it again. Because you've had so many good monologues and I've had none, and I was trying to do a good one and you cut me off in the middle of it. I hope you feel bad. That was your micro mistake.
I do. I really do. Here you go.
No, don't full screen me. Just go back. Don't full screen me.
You sexy, handsome cunt.
Okay, let me start my mic. You're going to have to edit this now. God damn it. Do you want me to edit this, or do you? Because you can just upload it to the thing and I'll edit it. It'll be quicker. Okay. I just want to say to everyone directly. I'm going to go full screen. No, I'm not going full screen. I just want to say to everyone directly. I'm going to rant to camera here. Like, you can't map out the reasons why everything in your life that happens socially happen the way they do. You are putting things on certain micro mistakes that you're making, and your ego is convincing you that you're correct. But your ego is like, there's a thing about your ego where it just wants to be correct about everything and convinces you that it is. What was the thing you told me the other day? Like, your ego would rather you die than be proven incorrect. That's something that was someone said.
Your ego would rather you die and feel right than live and be wrong.
Okay, that's exactly what I mean. So the neurotic guys amongst our audience are going to be thinking that every mistake they make is being picked up upon and it's the reason they're not getting anywhere with girls, when realistically the reason you're not getting anywhere with girls are more macro things that you need to work on, frankly, because a lot of the stuff that the mistakes you're making and things like that are easily forgiven if the girl's attracted to you. Like, girls who are attracted to you, you could literally throw wine on their dress during a date and they will still probably rip it off 2 hours later when they sleep with you. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where, like, these micro mistakes are just in your mind for the most part. I talked about this, especially with socializing. Guys who struggle with socializing have exactly the same problem, where they think people aren't liking them because they're making like weird micro mistakes in their conversations and stuff like that. And the only thing I can really say to these guys is be nicer to yourself. Like, even if you fuck up and you're shit, you are out there trying anyway as well. Like, and eventually, like, you realize that it's not about these small things and it's more about the big stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Basically, what you're doing is you're developing a superstition. And I have talked about this in this article here. You can go and find it on my website. It's called "Oh No, You've Angered the Gods." And what I talk about is, like you just said, you'll hyperfixate on the small, little micro mistakes that really don't fucking matter, but you think they do. And the reason is because you're desperately hunting for a reason or something to, I don't want to say blame, but something that you can pin the rejections on. And at the end of the day, the thing is, some people just won't like you. Some people just won't want to sleep with you. Maybe she has a boyfriend. She's in a bad mood. She doesn't talk to people that just walk up to her and hit on her. Maybe she doesn't like your haircut. Maybe she's just not horny or interested or single that day. There's a billion different reasons why somebody won't like you.
You blame yourself, but you always blame yourself.
And you go, it's something that I did. It's a very childlike, and I say that with love, it's a very childlike, beautiful, innocent, naive thing that we do, that children do. And as a really good example of that, children go, "Mummy and Daddy are divorcing because me. It's my fault that mummy." Every fucking kid who goes through divorce thinks that it's their fault. Every young child thinks that it's their fault. And it's like, oh my fucking God, sweetheart. Like, no, it's because mummy cheated on daddy, or it's because daddy doesn't love mummy. It's because daddy hits mummy. It's one of 10 billion reasons that have literally nothing to do with you as a child, but because you're stuck in your egocentric view of the world and you see everything through your own lens, you think it must have something to do with you. The reason that we do that is because if we can think that it's our fault, then there's sort of this feeling of, fuck, maybe I could change this. Maybe I could fix this. And the process
It's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It's a misunderstanding of that idea of like, so that idea of the responsibility thing where you have 100% control over everything. Okay. The misunderstanding there is, again, these micro things. Like you have to have like, what do they call it when a boss is being overly controlling?
Like micromanaging.
Yeah. When you have this idea that like you have to have absolute control over everything because you're absolute responsibility for everything. That's not the way it works. It's more about you making big decisions and taking responsibility. That's what's it called? Like 100% accountability, whatever the fuck.
Personal responsibility, yeah.
No, what the fuck does yes, extreme ownership. Yeah. Okay. That's really more about big decisions than it is about controlling every little thing, because those little things don't have as much impact on everything as the big decisions do. So what it is like saying that everything happens in your life is due to you, and you have to take responsibility for all the big decisions that you made, not all of the little small actions you're making. It's not about you choosing to walk at a certain pace or having a certain like posture when you talk to people. No, it's about things like the bigger decisions that you made that put you in the situations that created those outcomes. That's what it's about. And yeah, just ignore these you would do so much better, or guys would do so much better if they just relax and let themselves make these shit little awkward, like, you know what I mean? If they feel like they're being awkward or whatever, it's amazing how they're not awkward when they're not over thinking about this stuff.
And you know how you make yourself not awkward and relax? You give yourself permission to suck. It is the first article I ever wrote. It is the second podcast I ever did. I have touched on this subject in basically every piece of content, every video course, every coaching call. I bring this up thousands of millions of times a second. Like, give yourself permission to suck. Take that goddamn pressure off yourself that you have to be good at this shit. Stop trying to, like Cam said, micromanage everything, and realize that a lot of this stuff, like human interaction, especially friends and especially relationships and sex and dating, it has less to do with you and like you're only 50% of the equation. Even if you did literally a perfect job, the other person could be like, that's great. I'm so glad you did a perfect job. However, I'm not single. Goodbye. Like, that's it. A second thing to say here is focus on, you said this before, stop micromanaging and start almost macro-managing. What I mean by that is, you know, the fact that you didn't stimulate her enough emotionally, or the fact that you made some tiny little mistake, which there never is mistakes, you're just being you. The fact that you made a, quote, mistake is such a small thing. Focus on the big things. If you stopped making these tiny little mistakes, as you call them, maybe that would make a 5 or 10% difference in your dating results. But if you went to the gym and gained 10 kilograms of muscle, that makes a 100% difference. If you learned a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit of patience, a little bit of self-love, that would make a 500% increase. If you
he says he's not confident. He says he's not confident. How are you going to get confident if you're micromanaging every little thing that you do? I don't understand.
Beating yourself up and beating yourself up for every little mistake. If I'm sitting there with a child and they're trying to like learn to tie their shoes and I'm like, no, you fucked that up. That's wrong, 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 wrong. If I just keep yelling that at them, you're never going to get this. No, I'm not interested in helping you tie your shoelaces now. Why are you such a fuck up? No, this is so wrong. Like, you're not even getting the basic shit. You're so bad at this. Do you think that kid is going to be confident? What the shit?
If you want to know what the big things are as well. If you want to know what the big things are as well, just go to Andy's Tinder guide and like the getting more, is it like get more attractive or something? There's like an entire section of the Tinder guide, which is like making yourself more attractive. All of the big things that we talk about are just listed there. And like, if you fix every single...
I would honestly, for this person, for this guy, and Commando Master, I know you post a lot and I fucking love that. I would focus on some self-love, brother. Like, that is above all else. All else. Like, I wouldn't even try and improve yourself. Go on dates and improve yourself if you want to, sure. Like, keep doing that. But I wouldn't even focus on that shit. I would be going like, why? I would be asking questions. Why do I feel the need to control every little thing that I do? Why do I feel like I have to be perfect to have someone be interested in me? Why do I feel like I have to be a 100% perfect human being for someone to even give me their time? Here's another thing to ask. Do I think that Andy and Cam are 100% perfect all the time? Why is it okay for... Here's a big one to ask yourself. Why is it okay for Andy and Cam to suck, but not me? And saying this gently, We would call that arrogance. The fact that you think you can't be perfect, but Cam and I can be imperfect. So you think you can't be imperfect, but Cam and I can be imperfect. You literally think you're better than us. I mean, every human being on the planet is not perfect. They make little mistakes, and that's okay. You think it's not okay for you to make little mistakes. Do you think you're better than every other human being on the planet? And the answer is yes, you do. There's a weird form of narcissism and I'm not calling you a narcissist. It's just that you have a big ego that's sort of running the show right now. But there's a weird form of narcissism where there's a misunderstanding of narcissism. People think narcissism and arrogance and ego is that you love yourself, you think you're perfect, you think you're better than everyone else. There's also the reverse of that. It's like reverse narcissism, where you think you're worse than everyone else. You think you're just so imperfect and you have to get your shit together and you're always making mistakes and you become highly neurotic trying to fix everything that you do. That's narcissism. You think you're not allowed to be perfect, but all of us are just dumb, imperfect, stupid human beings. And it's fine for us to fuck up, but you're better than that. You're not allowed to make a mistake. You shouldn't be making mistakes. So...
And I got a bit ranty here, and I just want to say to, what's his name? You keep stopping it where I can't see his name.
Commando Master.
I did get a bit ranty, but I think the overriding point is we do want you to love yourself more. So it's like one of those things where obviously it's great that you are like actually working on yourself to get better at this stuff. I think Andy's right when he says that like some of the self-love stuff we talk about, some of the letting go would be quite a good book potentially to read as well, like letting go of some of the worries and cares you have about how you're like how you are carrying yourself in terms of as an inexperienced guy, letting go of like the shame over your inexperience as well. That might be another big thing that could help. I do want to help, like as many guys see this stuff, I shouldn't have like flipped off a little bit immediately, but like it's not my frustration, it's me wanting to help guys and get them to a point where they can relax a little bit and actually enjoy the process of getting good with girls. Because we see so many guys in, I don't want to shit on other communities, but you see a lot of places which are very much like they're trying to drill instructor boot camp guys like into being successes, when Andy and I want to like actually let you enjoy the whole process, not just kill yourself for 3 years so you can enjoy everything after that. Like there is a way for us to do this with self-love and to enjoy the entire thing. And I think you'll enjoy dating a lot more if you're not micromanaging yourself. And that's the ultimate thing I want for you guys, is to have enjoyable dating lives.
Yeah. There's this sort of false idea here with Commando Master in your comment, mate. You think that you're just somehow going to become confident and then that will solve all of these problems that you've invented. These are all problems you've invented, by the way. But the confidence isn't just going to magically come, especially not if you spend every waking second beating yourself up for tiny little mistakes. That is not confidence. That won't build confidence. That is the opposite. If you told me, hey, Andy, I'll give you $1 million if you can make this person unconfident, what are you going to do that? The first thing I would say is I'm going to beat them up for every tiny little mistake that they ever do. I'm going to tell them everything they do is wrong. And I'm going to constantly criticize and tell them, you should do better. This isn't good enough. Like, that's how I'm going to destroy their self-esteem. And so that's kind of what you're doing. And you're doing it because you want to help yourself. You're trying your best, to be clear here. You're not beating yourself up for mistakes because you're stupid or something. Like, no. Like, this isn't about mistakes. In fact, I would love for you to get to a point where you realize that there are no mistakes, brother. Like, the things that you're sitting there saying are mistakes, as Cam said earlier, I bet if we were sitting on a date with you, you'd be going, oh my God, guys, this is the worst day ever. Look how many mistakes I'm making. I bet you, Cam, and I would sit there and go like, what mistakes? What fucking mistakes are you talking about? Well, she looked at me and made eye contact, and then after half a second, I looked away. And it's like, but how's that a mistake? You were just a little bit shy because you're nervous. I stumbled my words a little bit and I couldn't think of anything to say. There was an awkward silence for about 20 seconds at some point. It's like, that's called being a human. How's that a mistake? So I think you're hyper fixating and calling things mistakes. That you can call it a mistake if you want to, but what if you were to go on a date and just see what happens? What if you were to approach a woman and say, there are no mistakes? What if I just do my best? What if I give myself permission to suck? And if I suck, what bad thing happens? I think you've told yourself a story here that, any little mistake that you make interacting with girls will cause them to not want to do anything further with you. When I read that, I had the first thought that Ed in our coaching program always says, how the fuck do you know? By your own admission, you're a newbie. How do you know that it's the little mistakes that you're making that are causing them to not want to do anything further with you. Your ego is letting you or telling you that you're an expert, that you somehow know the answers, but you really don't. All right, Captain, Commando, Master, and everybody else, I hope that was helpful. I hope you all felt a little bit of fucking love and you can give yourself a little bit of self-love. We have coaching.
I hope I wasn't too... I'm trying to tell everyone that I hope I wasn't too mean and I wanted to be nicer to everyone next time. I was a bit mean to the last couple.
No, dude. Okay. And I put this pressure on myself too. And anyone listening, feel free to leave us a comment on this. I think you and I are constantly looking for, ironically, we're doing the same thing that we say some of our commenters here do, where we put all this pressure on ourselves that and we micromanage. You're essentially micromanaging. So, hey, Commando Master, we do it too. We micromanage our own language and shit. And
yeah, this is true.
Was I too harsh on this guy? Did I hurt his feelings? What if I didn't give him enough love? And it's like, motherfucker, allow me to step into pride for half a second here. There are people on the internet spouting stuff that objectively just makes you feel shit. Objectively. If I turn the television on right now and watch the news, objectively, I will not feel good afterwards. That shit is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we're sitting here going, I love you. I want you to love yourself. And if you can't love yourself, hey, that's beautiful too. I'm going to try and help you. And then we're like, man, was I just too harsh on that guy when I was trying to help him love himself? We're basically trying our fucking best. And in the same way that Commando Master is micromanaging himself on dates, we do the same thing on podcasts. So let's be very clear. We're not fucking perfect. Neither are you.
Do you know where it's coming from as well? It's this is your audience. So I feel like I have to show more respect. If it was my own audience, I'd be a little bit more fuck you. I'm going to, yeah. Whereas I come onto your, less so. It's more like a respect for you. It's I don't want to cause you any issues as well, I guess. It's a hey, I'm going to come on and chat to your.
You just said it's a beautiful thing that the ego does. I do this all the fucking time where I'm that's coming from fear. No, it's not fear. It's respect. I'm just scared that I will fuck up your audience.
You do this all the time in my in direct chat with me. Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
I know.
Anyway, let's wrap it up.
We have a fear thing.
Let's wrap it up. We have coaching down below.
Roll the fucking outro.
All right.
What a nice, juicy shot of motivation when it comes to making money. Check out what these absolute legends have done in our coaching program. Laz more than doubled his monthly income from $25,000 a month to $45K a month. Dimitri started his own business and earned his first $500 within his first 2 months. Ravi followed in my footsteps and created his own kick-ass coaching business, motivating other people and changing the world. Joe started his own successful photography and dating business, quitting his job and earning tons of money, all while helping guys get the dating life they've always dreamed of. None of these people are special. Come and join our coaching program and have us save you years of figuring out the business world yourself. You deserve to have money. You deserve to have a big, sexy, fat bank account, and we'd love to help you make that happen. Click the link in the description below to the coaching program. We can't wait to see you there.